Well, very unique situation we find ourselves in, where for 40 days and 40 nights, yeah, biblically we all know what that means. The backdrop is the Nile River, and of course it's peak hour traffic, and he had peak hour times at the Suez Stadium, and that's where he was conducting things as the general coordinator, a position that he's been holding on for as long as the 40 days and 40 nights that we talk about. But he's bound to go home now. Kabelo Bosilong joins me here on MarawaTV. Good to see you. And
good to see you too.
That long in Egypt.
Yep.
What's that been like?
Interesting. I've learned a lot about Egypt. The weather, for one, is something that I think our summers you don't get used to. It's the heat from the sun. Here it's just dry. So it's just very difficult to acclimatize to. So it's just been very sticky and sweaty and humid, but we're in Africa.
Obviously you've done something that we're all very proud of. When we talk about general coordinator of a venue, not too many, especially from the south part of the continent, get that opportunity and that privilege. Firstly, congratulations, and how did that come about?
Thank you very much. Well, I have been a general coordinator with CAF since end of 2015.
Right.
So I've been doing quite a lot of Champions League, Confederations Cup matches, and I think, well, I was assistant general coordinator in the last AFCON in Gabon, and this year I think I've been doing quite a few big matches. I was a general coordinator at the under-20 World AFCON in Niger, and I think that was a test for me. They were probably testing me out for this tournament, and I think I did a pretty good job, hence why I got selected for this tournament. And then right before the AFCON, I got another appointment as the general coordinator for the Confederations Cup final between Zamalek and Berkane. So that was another big game, which, you know, was also testing. And I think I've had quite a few challenging matches this year, and I think God probably said, you know what, have Suez as a venue. It was nice and relaxed, and I had a great team. So yeah, everything went well.
Suez, you were there with the likes of Mali, Angola, Tunisia was also part of it. Yep. Mauritania, also part of it there. But when you talk about challenging, what and which game in particular was challenging for you, and why?
For this tournament? I think the first game. I always go with the mentality that first is the worst.
Right.
Especially in a tournament environment, first is the worst, because that's where you get to understand the locals, how they work, because you have to work with a lot of people. Even with a CAF team that you're working with, you're getting to understand them. So I think for the first game, and it was a double header, and you know, in Egypt, security is a big thing. Obviously, there's many security institutions in this country, and it was very difficult for us to get a coexistive relationship. Right. Only after that we had discussions with the chief of police, and then it was smooth sailing from there. But I think the first match is always the difficult, and it was the worst, because you have 4 different teams, you have 4 different sets of VIPs in a small area. You're managing a lot of things on one match day, and it's your first time for everybody. And after a while, obviously you get into the swing of things, and it becomes a lot easier. But the first match day was the worst.
You inspire a lot of people, and if somebody's watching and saying general coordinator, something that you've done several times under the auspices of CAF or FIFA, what is it, just in short summary, is it that you do from the moment you arrive at the host venue?
Okay, well, officially the role of the general coordinator is he is the head of administration for CAF at that particular venue. So as a general coordinator, you're in charge of a team, and the team consists of the security officer, marketing, media, medical, TSG, services, logistics. So the whole entire team, you as a general coordinator are heading that venue, and everything runs through you, and your main role is to ensure that obviously all the objectives of CAF and obligations that we have to do in conjunction with the local LOC, you work with them, but it's to make sure that obviously all the matches happen, and all the auxiliary events around it, your training sessions, your press conferences, all those other things also happen, and make sure that they happen without any incidents, and to ensure that the teams obviously have a safe arrival. And So it's basically just heading up the venue on all logistical, administrative elements for the match to take place. And the most important things for general coordinators always is obviously to keep time. The match must kick off on time, so that's obviously the big challenge for us, is kicking matches off time. And there's a lot of stories of obviously teams delaying, kickoff that we can get into. But yeah, that's the main role.
We won't get into it, but we'll sort of get into it. There was the one game that kicked off 2 minutes late. What was the story there? Because it can't just be because it happened. There would have been a reason behind it.
Yeah, I think some of these teams, and especially with pressure, tense matches. During the first few games, teams are more relaxed, but when the games start increasing in pressure and obviously the magnitude of the games, then you start seeing little things that teams start doing, and they're out of their character. I mean, when people start giving you team sheets late, usually they give you on time, but now they want to see if the other team has handed you the team sheet before they can hand in the team sheet, and it doesn't make a difference because everyone's going to see it. And then the match started 2 minutes late because one of the teams basically didn't want to get out until the other team got out of their dressing room. So now it was almost a fight between I don't see them coming out and they were saying I don't see them coming out. So it was, I was telling them we're going to walk on the field without you guys, with just the escorts. And finally, they started to come out, and then the one team captain always has to make sure he's the last one out of the dressing room. So it was another mission just to get him out. So I had to go back in the dressing room, and he's a very prominent player who's going to be playing in the final on Friday. But he they have the own superstitions as well. So you see a lot of things in the dressing rooms with the players. But as the general coordinator, I mean, they get to respect you. They don't listen to you sometimes, but they respect you in the job you do, and you respect what they do, and you give them their privacy. But you want to make sure you provide a conducive environment for the players to be able to perform, because at the end of the day, they are the stars, and they're the ones who people have come out there for.
100%. And the one thing that we spoke about a couple of days ago, which you shared with me and us at a table, which I still find quite astounding. Maybe it'll be a debate point for many of the coaches who are going to be watching this show, is that of the request, the unique request that has become so popular in the change room amongst players when they're supposed to be focusing on the game. They're asking you for
Wi-Fi password. It was strange to me as well. I think the first match day they asked for it, and we'd give it to them individually. But then when we started getting a lot of the requests and they all started coming, we just said, let's just put it up in the dressing room, because at the end of the day, you can't stop them from, if that's the way they relax and tune into the match and is by having Wi-Fi, then let's give that to them. So yeah, we had to post the Wi-Fi password in the dressing room on top of the times that they had to come out.
But how does that sit with you, having been a former player yourself, an aspiring pro? Obviously, we still pray for that ankle of yours. How does that sit with you when you look at it analytically and say, but guys, where is your focus? Is it on your Instagram, or is it on a very important game?
My personal opinion is obviously you would expect players to be focusing on the match, but sometimes players want to be as relaxed as possible, and for them to relax as possible, maybe to watch inspirational quotes on YouTube, or listen to particular things, or talk to someone at home right before the match. So if that calms them down and makes them, more relaxed, then, I mean, we have the facilities, why not? I mean, back in the day, players used to, not too long ago actually, players used to smoke in the change rooms, then that's how they relaxed before they went out. So I think we've moved on from there, which this is a lot better than smoking cigarettes in the dressing room, but it is strange. It was a very strange request, but I think that's the times we're moving in, is where technology is playing such a big part. And I mean, even in the dressing rooms, some of the CAF digital team were taking exclusive shots and they were happy. You know, they even asked, you know, here's my Instagram account, tag me on those, you know. So they want to be they want to be in those pictures and tagged so that people can see them out there. And so it's very interesting. Obviously times have changed where social media and, you know, the internet has changed things a lot, and now there's more access, and obviously they want to post things themselves and send out to their families and their fans, and, you know, that exclusive content. So the game has changed on and off the field.
All right, before I let this man go, I'm going to talk about something really exciting, because he was the first South African, and you're going to celebrate everything that's first. FIFA Masters program. Well done on that. I know it's not overnight that it happens. What was the thinking? How did that come about?
Well, it's a long journey, because obviously I wanted to become I was an aspiring professional player. I got a scholarship to go to America, study and play football. Then I had that conversation with yourself. You know, it's a difficult one, but where you have to tell yourself you're not good enough at that level. You're not good enough. When you see, you know, because you always get gassed up, people telling you how good you are, but you know, you have to be true to yourself. And I think once that happened, I said, okay, if I can't, you know, I'm not going to be, what am I going to do? And I remember I was watching actually a Champions League game, AC Milan against Barcelona, where Ronaldinho did this magical touch and he shot the ball with his left past Dida and he celebrated. I jumped out of my chair. I don't support any of those two teams. I jumped out of my chair, and that feeling I got, and I said, you know what, if I can't get paid to play football, I want to get paid to watch football. That's my goal. And I didn't know what or how, but I said that's what I want to do. That's why I actually have a Champions League tattoo to remind me of that moment, so that I can always go back to that moment and harness that energy of how I felt and the pure joy, the innocent joy of football and how it made me feel that day. So I started looking around for master's programs because I knew I needed to study something, and I stumbled upon the FIFA Master. And it's a master's course where you're 3 months in England studying sports history, 3 months in Milan studying sports finance, and 4 months in Switzerland studying sports law. Then I wrote my thesis on how the PSL can leverage from the World Cup. And that's where I got in touch with Kabelo Bosilong, because he got a hold of my thesis. He read it, he called me, we had a meeting in South Africa, and he said, I want you to join me at the PSL. And then I had to first meet the chairman, of course, and that's a story for another day. That's a long, that's an insert on its own. But yeah, then when I started the first day, I asked him, what am I supposed to do? What's my role? And he basically said, start implementing some of the recommendations in your thesis. So that's how I started on my journey in South African football. And it's been a roller coaster of a ride, but enjoyable. But it's been part of a plan. So, and I always tell people that you must have a plan, because everything you do must be growing or adding to the plan that you have, the overall plan that you have. And my overall plan was, you know, to one day start a football club, but run it the right way. And that's why I wrote my thesis on the PSL, because I thought that's the best place to first go work if you want to understand the game itself. So that was part of the plan. So there's been a lot of things across the way that have obviously deviated, but everything that I've been doing has been part of understanding the game in its entirety. So one thing that Kabelo CM said to me, which was very important, was that he said, whatever you do in football, make sure you have an understanding of everything, so that people cannot bullshit you. So if you're sitting in a broadcast meeting, you understand what they're saying. You don't have to be an expert, but you understand. If you're sitting in a sponsorship meeting, in a marketing meeting, in a football technical meeting, understand the game in its entirety, so that you have a full understanding and you can't be bullshitted, you know, nobody, because you have a good understanding of the game. So that's been what I've been inspiring to do, is to gather as much information as I can from every single aspect of the industry, because at the end of the day, we work in this industry because we love football. We're first fans, number one. And when you're a fan, and I mean now with social media and a lot of fans who don't even work in the industry know a lot more than the officials so you've always got to be a step ahead, because if you're in the industry, you got to know more than what the fans know, because you're expected to be the experts in your industry. So it's constant looking at different trends, what's going on, reading up on statute, and that's what I think a lot of our officials back home struggle is reading. Reading. I think that could solve a lot of problems, is reading a lot of documents. And one of my biggest tasks was to come up with the compliance manual back in the PSL, and that's a document we wanted to do so that almost like a Bible, that clubs can use this document to help them in administering their everyday football activities. So I think the clubs, I mean, at the beginning they were totally against it, and you know, change is when change happens, people are not always going to accept it. When we came with, you know, things like a coach has to do a pre-match and a post-match, it was like, no, what's this? When you have to hand in a team sheet an hour before, we got into the biggest, at a meeting, we got into the biggest discussion about that 1 hour before, and Shetso was like, what is going on? What's the special projects?
The Muti.
So I had to explain a lot of things to him that he didn't understand. I'm like, no, they think you give it to them, that some things are gonna, you know, so it was very interesting time. But now it's great that those kind of things we've gotten over, and it's now become a part of the game. But I think what's lacking now, we need to get to the next level. I think we haven't pushed ourselves further as South African football, as a league, as clubs, as a national association. We haven't pushed ourselves further, and I think the World Cup coming gave us that something to look forward to and push ourselves. But now, after it left, it's like, okay, what now? And we weren't able to reinvent ourselves, and I think we need to find that within us, to reinvent ourselves and say, okay, what's that next thing that we want to? It can't always be that we have to host something to get the best out of people. We need to do it ourselves. And I think obviously South Africa, from a CAF perspective, is looked at as a leading light in every form, in terms of the league, in terms of association. So we need to be the forerunners of anything that happens, any new trends, anything that happens within football. South Africa, everyone's looking. I was in a club licensing workshop, which is also something else that I do. I'm a club licensing instructor. We were at a workshop, and a lot of the leagues, because most of the leagues are run by the associations, a lot of the associations were saying, we want to run our leagues the same route as South Africa, just because they see the success of the PSL. But we constantly have to tell them, no, but your situations might be different. It doesn't mean that if you separate your league from the FA that it's going to be as successful. It depends on the situation. So, but just that sense gave me, everyone's looking at our league and seeing, okay, because they did that and it's successful, maybe that's the route we should take. You know, so people are always watching what we do, and we must always bear that in mind, especially our brothers next to us, because they consume our product the most. So we need to be the leading light and make sure that when we grow, then the others also will push and grow with us. So I think we've got to take that responsibility and task on and go full out and make sure that we become one of the leading players in the African game.
Well, as you heard, they're multifaceted in many ways, and obviously a leading light as far as SA football is concerned. The compliance manual, that is something you and I will talk about when we get back to South Africa. That is still something we can take and say, have the clubs passed here? Are they releasing players to go for interviews before the weekend? Tick. Are they releasing players, coaches post the weekend to look at review and preview shows? Tick. There's so many different things we're going to have a look at, because that compliance manual is gold. It is that should be a trade exchange between saying, you've done well, here's your 2 million in the back of your pocket, you deserve it, as part of the money when it comes to the broadcast deal. But so much to talk about. As I said, multifaceted, an individual who's inspiring so many at a very young age as well. FIFA Masters program, that is the one thing we'll chat about. He'll give us an exclusive about the chairman as well, because we can't run away from that. What happened? We'll have his side, we'll have the chairman's side, and you'll have both sides. Kabelo, thank you so much for being with us.
Brother. Thank
Safe
you.
journey back home.
I'll see you back when you get back.
For sure.
Cheers.